Last week's Parashat tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed to send an army from the tribes to do battle against the Midianites for their participation in the plans of Balaam to bring about the downfall of the children of Israel through sexual immorality and ultimately through idolatry, through Avodah Zarah. Now, the Torah tells us that 1,000 men were selected from each tribe, but the Midrash Tanhuma tells us that there were actually 3,000 men. Why the discrepancy? The Midrash Tanhuma tells us that 1,000 men were sent indeed to act as soldiers, but another 1,000 men were there to act essentially as support troops. In addition to them, another 1,000 men were present to pray while the 1,000 men were engaged in battle. Once Midian was conquered and defeated, the army returns with booty from the conquest. And the Torah tells us that a command was given to divide equally the booty between those who had gone into battle and between those who had stayed, between all of the children of Israel. Now, what does that tell us? Rabbi Isaac Abravanel tells us that this shows the importance of those who stayed because they were engaged in prayer. Now, the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud in Tractate Sanhedrin 49a, relates a similar concept. It tells us that the only reason that Joab, who was the general of David's army, was able to go and conquer the enemies of Israel was because David was engrossed in Torah study. But then the Gemara tells us that conversely, the only reason that David was able to engross himself in the study of the Torah was because Joab was engaged in the defense of the people of Israel. It shows the relationship between physical action and spiritual action and how the two are very much linked together. Now, there's a famous story of the Baal Shem Tov who had gone to visit Rabbi David Likas, and a decree had been given from the government that the Talmud would be burned. Now, what Rabbi David Likas was to hide his Talmud under a washtub in the hope that it would not be found. And then he entered the room and saw the Baal Shem Tov pacing back and forth, and the understanding is that he was engaged in prayer. And the Baal Shem Tov told Rabbi David, he said, one must fight fire with fire, and they learned that the decree had been lifted. Now, what's important here is quite clear, is that action is needed to bring about something. But we can never forget the importance of the spiritual component of anything that we do. Only relying on prayer does not bring about success, but success cannot be brought about without prayer. It takes physical action and it takes spiritual involvement to ensure that our needs and our commitment to Hashem are brought about successfully.